Christy Wright is sharing a marquee, portaloo and a barbecue with 6 strangers. She even cancelled a holiday to be here, but these hopefuls say it's worth it to secure their dream blocks.
They're nice big flat blocks and you just can't get those anywhere around here anymore, and the prices are quite reasonable, so the opportunity comes, you've got to take it.
After 9 days, the countdown is into its final hours, with 11 blocks to be released tomorrow.
And in the morning they just come out, read your name off the list, you go in, you pay your deposit and you tell them what block you want.
It's proved a tidy little earner for a couple of the campers who are being paid to mind someone else's favourite block. For everyone else though, it's been a great way to get to know future neighbours.
We just sort of sit around and just wait and have a chat, and it's good. You can talk about the land and what houses you're going to build.
While Landcom provided the marquee and the portaloo, it says it doesn't encourage campers.
We don't encourage it, but we can't stop it. So if we were to try and stop it, people would say that we were preventing them from the opportunity, and we don't want to do that. So we manage it the best way we can.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
The residents that have got dementia will recognise these photos from when they moved here or lived here, and it will help spark up conversation.
This afternoon, 250 people, most of them volunteers, were working to make sure Newcastle Fashion Week ends with a bang. Tonight sees the last of 6 shows, and it will feature some out-of-the-box bridal wear, including these designs by Melanie Ford.
Melbourne has a fashion week, Sydney has one, and now Newcastle has their very own, to get our local designers out there and boutiques to put them on the fashion map.
The fellas will also get some time on the 25-metre runway, but the headline designers will be Newcastle success story, High Tea with Mrs Wu. Sisters Rowena, Juliana and Angelina Fung have found international success with their Asian-inspired, flamboyant designs.
They've actually been showcased around the world.
A brainchild of cancer survivor Louise McKay, Newcastle Fashion Week is a fundraiser for the Cancer Council. Organisers say they can't wait to start planning next year's event.
Very happy. We're really surprised with our turnout and how Newcastle has reacted with it.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
BHP may be gone, but after 84 years of steelmaking, contamination was always going to be an issue. A decade after it closed, remediation of the site is only now nearing completion. Some local innovation helping to prepare the site for a new life.
Darracom, a local company run by Dave Mingate, a local bloke, built a wonderful wall which now contains the contaminants on site. That's been a fantastic job, absolutely fantastic job. And we're now facing the deepening of the channels for the new coal loader. So still got work to do.
Ask anyone with a vested interest in the Port of Newcastle and they'll tell you the former BHP site is perfect for a shipping container terminal. But that plan remains a dream rather than a reality. In 2005, the state government decided Port Kembla was the best location for a car import terminal, then decided to pump millions into the expansion of Port Botany, decisions that still cut deep in the Hunter.
There's a lot of vacant land up here that would have been suitable for that terminal up here, and it should have come here and it doesn't. And that was a straight government political decision, which I still I'm very angry about and dispute to this day.
I would have liked to have seen the container terminal progress, and I'm still very supportive of that.
It frustrates the hell out of me. But why we're building containers in Port Botany in Sydney is stupid, in my view. And I'd argue that the ideal spot was here. We had the rail, we had the land, we had the skill base to do it.
Newcastle, it seems, will have to wait until Port Botany reaches capacity, but that could take 20 years or more. adding to the frustration in the former steel city.
We have a situation where we produce massive amounts of aluminium which gets put on trucks and sent by road down to Sydney to be shipped, when we've got a perfectly good working port here in Newcastle.
We have to face a carbon constrained future where movements of goods along highways, railways, is to be avoided. If it can go out of a port of Newcastle, it should.
But the land is not sitting idle. The Newcastle Port Corporation has invested $25 million to build a general purpose wharf on the site. It's not the container terminal the business community is crying out for, but it will provide an important link. In the meantime, the Port Corporation has called for tenders across the world for a container terminal to be built by a private investor.
Were that to happen, we could potentially have a container terminal operating here within the next 5 to 10 years. That will precipitate a whole bunch of other business.
No matter what happens in the future, the legacy of BHP will live on in the memories of the former workers. Tomorrow afternoon, hundreds will gather here at the Mayfield Sport and Rec Club to reminisce over a few quiet beers. Cheers. Cheers. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Delayed a day in Brisbane due to the big red dust storm, the Raw touched down in Newcastle before heading out to training last night, and you could tell this is a tight team. After breaking a 6-game losing streak against the Raw, players were still dancing.
We've struggled a little bit away, so it was great to get that kind of hoodoo off our back kind of thing. And, you know, Brisbane were a tough side. They're always tough up there in the heat. But, yeah, hopefully we can roll on.
Not before some work on a sore back for Burns, who didn't train last night, but only to ensure he doesn't miss a match that marks former teammate Matt Thompson's 100th A-League appearance.
It must have been nearly a decade ago that we played together, and it's that just shows you, mate, how time flies. And he still looks the same, though. He still looks like a little kid. So
the Jets have won fans from rival camps for the way they play the game, but it's points that really count, and they need to find a balance starting tonight.
What we need to do is combine the entertainment side of it with the result side.
Meanwhile, former Newcastle Jet James Holland will captain the Australian under-20s team at the World Cup in Egypt. Currently playing in the Dutch League, Holland joins the likes of Paul Ocon and Mark Viduka in the role. Current Jets, Jason Hoffman and Sean Rooney, are in the team, which starts its campaign on Sunday against the Czech Republic. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Yeah, it's good to get a bit of recognition for the hard work you put through the year. It's real good, mate. Like, we sort of built from the year before and built again and keep building, and we've sort of got no excuses the next couple of years. It's our time, I think.
There's just no rest for Kurt Fearnley. Fresh from his Sydney Marathon success, the Paralympic champion today took time to encourage some up-and-coming athletes. Training camps like this one aim to give juniors a taste of a full-time training schedule.
It's a big step from training after school 3 or 4 times a week to, training full-time and trying to make a senior team.
One of those eyeing that next level is 14-year-old Nathan Arkley, who's been racing for 4 years and is already aiming high.
Hopefully qualify for London 2012.
It's been a big 2009 for Fearnley, who will look to keep his perfect record intact when he competes in 2 races in the United States next month.
To go 4 from 4 marathon and 5 from 5 road races over the entire year, I'm pretty happy. So if I can finish off with Chicago in 2 weeks and New York in 4.
All that as he prepares to take on the Kokoda Trail, which he admits will be testing.
No matter what marathons I've been doing or how many training sessions I'm in the chair, it's always that little bit easier than dragging myself up and down mountains.
Newcastle was once again blanketed in dust as topsoil from the country's southeast blew in and over the city. While today's storm wasn't nearly as bad as Wednesday's, it was spectacular in its own right.
To get two like this back to back in the same week, we're witnessing a very extraordinary weather phenomenon.
The dust limited visibility to around 4,000 metres, while savage winds whipped waves, making it one wild ride for surfers. After water usage spiked on Thursday, following the Big Red, Hunter Water is asking people to be water wise when washing cars, boats and homes following this latest dusting.
Along with the trigger-activated nozzle on your hose, one of the other good devices is a high-pressure water cleaner. If you can use one of those, that actually saves about 80%.
And while today's storm is done and dusted, we could be in for more of the same.
Until we get decent rain throughout the interior, we're going to have the potential of these dust storms reoccurring when these powerful fronts move through the southeast. So pray for decent rain.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
We believe it's not in keeping with our village centre and we're asking people to come along and vote with their feet. We're very concerned about the traffic and the trucks.
I think Newcastle was built on the back of the BHP, and I've asked this question a lot. Where do you think BHP or Newcastle would be if BHP never come to town?
The looks said it all as the nature of Newcastle's loss sunk in today. For the second straight week, the result hinged on a penalty involving their keeper. It was hard to cop on a night Newcastle had dominated. Even Mile Stojovski's winner needed help off the bar as Perth made it 1-0, but the Jet skipper reckons criticism of his gloveman is misdirected.
Unfair, big time.
At the end of the day, mate, I mean, if you can't score, then obviously you're not going to win any games.
Thompson makes a fair point. The Jets had the better of the game, but despite all the hard work, none of their chances were finished off. Labano Haliti strike pretty much summed things up, as Newcastle found everything but the net. Adam DePuzzo didn't miss his target, but Jacob Burns' reaction made draw a second look in the match review. Song Jin Hyung was head and shoulders above all on field, but even he couldn't find a winner. Instead, it was Perth punishing Newcastle for another night of missed opportunity.
Look, it's a frustrating thing, man. I just think that you've got to be patient, and I just think it's a matter of time before it actually turns around for us.
Too many people have to pay green fees and set themselves up and clothes and pay clubs and things like that. It's all just too much for me. All I want to do is have you out in the street, playing golf, having a good time.
Kathleen Gipple is 102 years young. The Waratah resident celebrated surrounded by family and took the opportunity to reflect upon her long life.
You mightn't have seen me doing much, but I did a lot for the poor people.
Her family says a balanced lifestyle is the secret behind her longevity.
She's had a fairly good, healthy life and she's always been fairly active.
But Kathleen says there's more to it than that.
But first you mind your own business. And then you can start looking to help people.
Her carers say while Kathleen is their oldest resident, she's one of the liveliest. Living past the age of 100 is something her extensive family hopes will be genetic.
That's something to look forward to myself, isn't it?
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
There's no prerequisites that you need to have to be a roller derby girl, just a little bit of spunk and a little bit of attitude.
I don't care how young or old you are. I mean, if you're on the pitch, you're good enough to do a job. So I don't want to hear that young boys don't have experience or older boys don't have youth or whatever it is.
He's the national and state under-16 surfing champion, and Cooper Chapman already looks like he could step up to a bigger stage. Taking on the men yesterday, the North Narrabeen board rider placed third in the open final, but back against his own age group, the 15-year-old was a class above, claiming today's round of the New South Wales Series at Newcastle's Bar Beach. This is where they all hope to end up, the World Tour, where they'd join the likes of current world number one Joel Parkinson. The Aussies' lead on the standings, though, has taken a serious dent after crashing out in round 3 of the Tour event in France. Hometown boy and wildcard entry Patrick Bevan pulled off a stunning upset in front of vocal locals, and didn't he enjoy that? Parkinson's loss is 9-time and current world champion Kelly Slater's gain, who narrowly avoided his own early exit by scoring a late win over another Frenchman as he looks to cut deeper into the Australians' points lead.
If I could win this contest, then at Mundaka I could maybe catch up. If I, that's what the math is.
B. Durbidge is one of several Aussies still alive in the contest.
If I could win this contest, then at Mundaka I could maybe catch up. If I, that's what the math is.
They're providing a boon to the construction industry and helping first home buyers get into the market. But the generous first home buyers grants had to come to an end, or at least be reduced, and the builders are bracing themselves for another downturn.
I think it will be a slight drop-off, but I think there's a fair bit of confidence there now. The industry dropped about 30% in the last 12 months in DA approvals.
In the first 8 months of 2009, Hunter residents were handed $56 million in grants. 3/4 of that went to those buying existing homes.
We saw an almost instant influx of first home buyers into the marketplace, coming back about October last year, and it's been very strong ever since then.
From this Thursday, the first homeowners' grants will be reduced from $14,000 to $10,500 for established homes, and from $24,000 to $14,000 for new homes. But agents are remaining confident about the next few months at least.
I think the demand will continue. I mean, look, we're going to lose a few $1,000s from the grant at the end of this month, but it is still a very good incentive to get out there in the marketplace between now and Christmas time.
The grants will revert to $7,000 from December 31. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The minister made the announcement standing atop mountains of white gold. Soon millions of tonnes of sand will be mined from Aboriginal-owned land at Stockton Bight.
This is a very good example of the coming together of both the development agenda and the rights agenda, that is, Aboriginal-owned land.
The sand will be sold to construction companies around the world, and with the raw product worth $10 a tonne, the project is expected to make $320 million over its 20-year life. But the Warramai Lands Council says it's about much more than money.
Reality is that the windblown sands are swallowing what natural forest is left at around 5 metres plus per year. If we don't start now, we could be shovelling sand off the Newcastle airport by the turn of the century.
Although the money will help.
That's going to allow us to implement our community land and business plan and put social benefits in place for our people.
Port Stephens Mayor Bruce McKenzie's company, Macca's Sand, will carry out the extraction, but the mayor's not worried about talk of a conflict of interest.
The public perception doesn't concern me any way, shape or form.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Not even the dust storms could take the gloss off the glitz. The showroom glass cleaned no less than 3 times leading up to tonight's launch. It's a new upmarket look for this end of town.
The West End needs a lift, and we're very proud to say that we've helped contribute towards that and look forward to further growth in the West End of Newcastle.
After 25 years in Newcastle, the dealership relocated to expand. The site 3.5 times the size of the previous premises and including a service centre. Mr Sharp admits, though, to some nervous times over the past 12 months, investing millions in the midst of the economic downturn.
Character building, to say the least. However, we've come out the other side, and this new facility here for BMW and Mini is reflective of our optimism for the future.
It seems for some, luxury cars are again on the shopping list. The dealership sold 2 flagship 750 LIs this year at $320,000 a pop. The Mini and the Mini Mini, appealing to the more budget conscious.
They weren't ideal shooting conditions with strong winds and cool temperatures, but with a tight schedule, the cast and crew pressed ahead today. Among the actors on set at the Raymond Terrace Cricket Ground, teen heartthrob Lincoln Lewis. The film Tomorrow When the War Began is based on a John Marsden book about a group of young friends who live in a rural town.
They then go out into the countryside for a weekend away. When they return, an army has invaded their whole town.
That country town is Wirrawee, which is actually King Street in Raymond Terrace. It's been transformed, complete with a post office, cinema and memorial park. For locals, their backyard has become a major movie set.
Busy, busy, busy. Everything changing and make-believe new buildings going up.
While for others, it's a trip down memory lane.
When we first came here to live, which is 56 years ago, this was the main street. And all the shops were in these old buildings.
Filming continues for 6 weeks. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
This is a glimpse of the lifestyles of the rich and famous. The 32-metre or 100-foot Necker Bell is the latest pride and joy of Sir Richard Branson. The super yacht has been in Newcastle undergoing a refurbishment and extension to accommodate a small submarine.
It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, we're going to have a submarine on top of it, which we're just finishing designing.
Having conquered the sky and knocking on the ceiling of space tourism, Branson also plans to explore the deep underwater world. The Necker Bell is named after Branson's own piece of paradise in the Virgin Islands, but her crew hail from closer to home.
Most of our crew are Australian, and they persuaded me that the Australian yards were good quality and good value. You know, our crew have been quite like being at home for a while, so all in all, it's worked out fine.
After crossing the Pacific, the Necker Bell will be up for charter in the Caribbean.
It's $100,000 a week, including the submarine.
I might need a pay rise.
There we go. We'll go and give him a pay rise.
And then Sir Richard was off on a flying tour of his other Australian interests.
A crude pre-season tackle cruelled Joe Wheelhouse for the first 7 weeks of the A-League. Returning via the Youth League comp at the weekend, he could find himself in the top grade by Monday.
We need a little bit of steel and mental toughness. Certainly Joby is one of those that comes into calculation.
It suits Wheelhouse, who's simply keen to get going.
Play a good block of games and get some confidence back and start playing good soccer again.
Iraq international Ali Abbas could find himself in the starting team for Adelaide, but the coach remains undecided if Michael Bridges has a future at Newcastle. The former Sydney-based Englishman is trialling for a spot to stay until the end of the season, and Jets fans have already seen what he's capable of.
That was the first thing Tarek said when I got here. He said, "Remember when you put one in the pigeon there, Bridges?" So he said, "You're horse." So hopefully I can bring something like that and give the Jets fans something to cheer about.
He just has to convince the coach, and Kalina will make his decision within days. What won't change is the team style of play.
We won't abandon the philosophy of trying to play football because I believe that in the long run that is the best way of getting ourselves out of trouble.
A proud moment for the skipper James Holland, who led Australia, and several former club mates, including Jason Hoffman, who had someone watching at home, while Ben Kantorowski started as the youngest of all on field. He actually saved the Aussies on more than one occasion in what was a nervous start for the green and gold. At the other end, an early chance fell to his A-League teammate. The finish typical of an Aussie side playing out of sorts, as the Czech Republic allowed few genuine chances. That was about the best of it as the Czechs continued to pressure. Sean Rooney replaced Hoffman at half-time. 5 minutes later, and the Czechs broke through. Down 1-0, frustrations only grew as the Aussies chased a game that was soon totally out of reach as the desperation spilled over. 2-0 down, the Aussies at least got one back, with Holland slotting home an injury time penalty, but it was little consolation with a must-win game against Costa Rica waiting tomorrow.
Muswellbrook has a little crime problem. Little because the latest alleged serious offender is just 10. Business owners in the town say they're fed up with gangs of young people causing trouble. But the problem hit a new low when the 10-year-old allegedly walked into this video store with a replica pistol. It's alleged a few minutes later the boy walked to this neighbourhood store and blew the proceeds on some snacks. It's the latest in a string of attacks in recent weeks. Eagle Boys next door has had all its windows smashed. The same video store's been broken into and been targeted by shoplifters. But police say they can't be everywhere, and those in the town fear for its future.
I really worry about bringing my kids up in the area. I worry about the fact that we are seeing an increase in juvenile crime, and I'm guessing it's not happening just here. I'm sure it's happening elsewhere. I think there needs to be tighter provisions within the law to deal with the younger kids so that they are taught from a young age, I can't do that, that's not okay, instead of just thinking, oh, I'll get a slap on the wrist and away we go again.
Late of night, you have kids walking around, they've got nothing better to do, there's nothing around the town for them to do, there's no cinema, there's no place to hang out except for cause trouble.
The boy has been charged with armed robbery and will face children's court next month. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Night time in Newcastle can get ugly. In 2007, the city attracted national attention as scenes of alcohol-fuelled violence and antisocial behaviour became commonplace. While the introduction of a lockout has seen crime rates fall, security companies and the Office of Liquor, Gaming and Racing say there's room for improvement.
Still a lot of work to be done, and that's the reason for getting the security accord together.
Tonight, they'll meet to develop a Hunter Valley security worker code of practice.
That way the patrons have a standard operating, they know what's going on, and we can educate them so that when they have an issue in one venue, it's going to be treated exactly the same way in all the other venues.
Bouncers will also be given advice on how to spot underage people trying to get into licensed venues.
We'll be going through the latest in what the types of fake IDs that are out there, how to identify them, also some of the RSA updates.
They'll also be taught the best ways to refuse entry or evict intoxicated or drug-affected patrons.
We deal with people in difficult circumstances on the job, and that's a part of our role. We're on the front line, and we just do need more education in that area for our guys.
Madeline Bond, NBN News. Lily Marlene has developed terrible conjunctivitis.
She's kicked some of the dust up and it's inflamed her skin and inflamed her eye a little bit. So we've just taken her in to get anti-inflammatories and steroid treatments.
Veterinarian Mark Simpson says Lily Marlene isn't the only animal to develop problems following the dust storms.
There has been an increase in the number of cases that we've seen of animals that have respiratory irritations, allergic conjunctivitis that affects their eyes obviously, and we're also expecting an increase in the incidence of diseases like parvovirus.
Dogs and birds in particular are suffering respiratory problems. This X-ray of a rabbit shows how the dust can affect pets' lungs. Dr. Simpson says if your animal is coughing or struggling to breathe, it needs to see a vet, particularly if it already has medical conditions.
It's urgent, and the respiratory tract being one of those focal organ systems, one of the main systems in the body that supplies oxygen and sets everything else up. If there's problems there, then that's going to domino into other things, and so it's pretty urgent.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
In every classroom there are obviously some kids that can't afford to attend, so we want to make sure that every child can receive the message, and that's where the support will come in.
To stop trashing the creek and help save the environment.
They've even put together some advertisements that we're hoping to get on the television to be professionally produced, so that they can help the community understand how they are impacting on the stormwater drains and on the creeks and rivers.
David and Kerry Bird are proud Novocastrians, but even prouder of their son Luke and all he's achieved at Parramatta. And they know better than most what Sunday's decider will mean to him.
We didn't think they'd make it at all, and then all of a sudden everything just clicked and off they went. And they've been brilliant ever since.
His previous chance for premiership success, ironically, came and went at the hands of his hometown club in 2001, and even he admits a shot at redemption is proving hard to ignore.
It's going to mean the world to me. It's something that I've dreamed about for so long, and especially after 01, it's something that I've always wanted another chop at.
So too Brett Finch at Melbourne, who's had his own share of grand final disappointment. In a twist, the pair played together at the Valentine Junior Rugby League Club in a team that now boasts several past premiership winners. Josh Perry scored with Manly, Clint Newton with Melbourne and Daniel Abraham with the Knights. Only one of these two, though, will join them on that list.
Finchie and Luke both deserve one. And Finchie's lost 2, I think, at East Sydney, and Luke won with Para, so we'll see what happens.
Finchie can have his next year.
Yeah, exactly.
At the Knights, Danny Wicks's recent pay cut to stay longer at Newcastle has helped the club retain Shannon McDonnell for a further 2 years.
The place is really buzzing, and guys see that playing and living and I suppose working in Newcastle, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad place to be.
Today was the day Englishman Michael Bridges was hoping to convince the Jets he's worth having for the rest of the season, but the club remained non-committal late today as they continue to explore other avenues. Some of the team's strikers have heard all the talk and believe the answer lies within.
It's a bit annoying, I think. We have top goal scorers here at the club, and it's just a matter of getting our timing right and getting on the end of things and putting them away.
Petrovski missed the weekend's match with a knee injury, but says he's ready for Adelaide and the chance to end the club's goal-scoring woes.
We'd like to have a little bit better service. Last game there was opportunities, but unfortunately they're just not going in for some reason. Luck, that's all we need. I think we're just missing a bit of luck.
Donny de Groot would love a bit of that to go his way after being robbed of much game time due to successive injuries. Now back on the park, he too believes the experienced strike pair can deliver.
If you win 3 or 4 times, you are on top of the board, and now you lose 3 times and we are a little bit down. We will get there. I got confidence in that.
I still haven't heard from my sister and her family. I don't know whether they're still alive or they're dead, or I don't know. I have no idea.
At 9:30 this morning, police swooped on a McDonald's car park. 23-year-old Sean Cassidy was taken into custody and charged with maliciously damaging property by fire. Officers then searched a house in Brown Street, Cessnock and a nearby property, seizing several items, including computers. Police allege Cassidy planted a firebomb inside this car at Brown Street on the 17th of September. The ensuing blaze destroyed 4 vehicles and John Janetzakis' home. Officers say information from the public helped lead to the arrest. Police had been criticised by residents who claimed officers weren't doing enough to find those responsible.
We can't advise the community of what's going on behind the scenes in our cases, because it can damage the investigation.
Police haven't ruled out further arrests. Sean Cassidy appeared before Cessnock Local Court late this afternoon and didn't enter a plea. He's been granted bail and is due to reappear on the 25th of November. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It's not every day workers facing redundancy speak well of their employer, but that was the case today, with these staff members and even a union representative content with the entitlements and career advice being offered by National Foods.
They've brought in other people to try and help them to learn how to get new jobs, and they're doing whatever they can to help them.
Julie Mason on the right has been working at the Hexham Dairy Farmers site since she was 16 and met her husband here.
Very happy for what the company's done for me in the past and others, so yeah, it's going to be sad because really the only job I've ever had.
We've grown up as a family, they've watched me get married, have babies, as we all have here. Most have been here a long time, so yeah, a bit of sadness.
Stephen Schaff admits being made redundant is daunting, given he has a family and a mortgage, and all 3 employees say it's frustrating not knowing exactly when the axe will fall.
Probably at least halfway through next year, I think.
All 78 staff, including one who's notched up 38 years of service, have been told production will cease by the end of next year, but no firm dates have been set. The manufacturing plant, which produces thickened cream, sweetened condensed milk and cottage cheese, will become a distribution centre with just 19 staff. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
At its peak, the Newcastle Steelworks employed almost 12,000 people, but by the time it closed, there were just 1,500. The final day 10 years ago was sunny and warm like today, and rather than waiting for the planned official speeches, the workers marched out the gates on their own timetable. A decade on, a small group gathered today at the Muster Point, a steel monument in the grounds of the Mayfield site. Among the guests was former Steelworks General Manager Jack Risby, who believes Newcastle owes a debt of gratitude to BHP and its people.
Basically, the city has grown on industry, and I think they'd be thrilled to see what the city's like today. I certainly am.
Artist Julie Squires, who designed the Muster Point, has since built monuments across Australia, but says this one will always be special to her.
It's still the biggest. And one of the great things about this job was that I was able to be on site for 18 months. So I had a really long time to soak up the energy of the place. And often, now I'll have 3 or 4 weeks to design something. And so this one really holds a lot of treasured memories for me.
It's very important that we remember the BHP and the people that work there, because this great city of ours, Newcastle, wouldn't be like it is today without it.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The people in Windale are great people, they've got great resilience, but often they have to travel outside their region to receive the assistance they need, and with the availability of this resource, it'll be much handier for them.
She pioneered a number of roles, especially for women, but more than that, she was a very important senior member of the Greiner and Fay governments.
The Australian Coal Association says the federal government's emissions trading scheme will force some mines to close, prevent others from opening and cost jobs in coal mining regions, but do nothing to reduce global emissions.
Because what is going to happen, you'll cut coal production in Australia, that coal will then just be produced in Indonesia, South Africa, Mongolia.
Mr Hillman believes if the tax goes ahead, 1,700 jobs will be lost in the Hunter alone. Tonight, the association is launching a multimedia advertising campaign against the scheme.
What do we want Canberra to do? We want them to change this legislation that's going to be voted in the Senate on the 26th of November.
But environment groups say it's all a big bluff.
I think it's worth looking at Newcastle, where they're currently about to open a third new coal terminal, talking about a fourth coal terminal in Newcastle. The industry is basically going gangbusters, and for the industry now to be turning around and saying, oh, we're going to have to close down mines, it just doesn't make sense.
Rising Tide Newcastle believes, if anything, the emissions trading scheme doesn't go far enough.
I really think that all the Coal Association is doing with this campaign is trying to put maximum pressure on the Rudd government to be given even more free handouts and free pollution permits.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
It's not quite a plague, but just the fact that these largely nocturnal creatures are out during the day looking for food means they're breeding in huge numbers. And it's a problem Aberdeen dairy farmer Tony Burnett could do without.
It's a nightmare. It's something that we've been trying to control for the 3 years I've lived here, and it's getting worse.
They've burrowed right under Tony's house, and their subterranean network is so extensive it's started to undermine the footings. Down the road at the historic Sedgen Ho Inn, owner Cherie and Pest Authority Ranger Craig are also on the trail of some cottontails. The plant-eating mammals eat their own droppings as well and are destroying Cherie's garden, which is used for weddings and parties.
They're decimating the land out there because wherever they defecate and wee, because of the acid, it just, they keep going back to the same place. And because we don't get any rain here, there's nothing to dilute it. So it burns the land, it burns the grass area, and it doesn't grow back.
With acute senses of hearing and smell, they're hard to catch. Ranger Craig shoots a few when he can and says eradicating them isn't easy.
A town situation, you've got to be very careful what you do and where. As in, you couldn't poison in a small situation like this because of the risk to domestic animals and children.
Probably the last 12 months, they're the worst I've seen it. Yeah, they're breeding like rabbits.
Many rabbit stews out there, I can tell you. But like I can't eat skivvy, I can't bring myself to eat the little buggers.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Michael Bridges made a name for himself in Newcastle when he scored the winner for Sydney in 2007. The Jets are hoping that's a sign of things to come.
Congratulations, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Branko Kalina worked with Bridges briefly at Sydney before the coach was sacked. Following an extensive search for players, Kalina says the 31-year-old will add natural leadership to the young squad.
You can never be sure, but this is the surest we've been.
Bridges was just hours away from signing with a Portuguese club before good friend Harry Kuehl mentioned his name to Jets director Remo Nogarotto. The Englishman believes he has a point to prove in the A-League and likes the idea of doing it here.
I've been down to Bar Beach a few times, jogging along the sand, watching the surfers down there, and down Derby Street grabbing a few coffees. So I've been very, very impressed with the area, and the people have made us feel really welcome.
Kalina hopes Bridges will establish himself as the Jets' dominant frontman.
So I think we just need someone who's going to take that responsibility and become the main person up front.
Bridges says he's looking forward to playing with midfielders Casper Tafter and Song, while sharing the love on the score sheet.
We've had 4 or 5 chances in each of the last 2 games, so I know there's going to be chances there, but I can also bring chances to other players, and hopefully they can get on the end a few as well. It's about spreading the goals around the team.
If his visa clears, Bridges will play against Adelaide on Monday.
We need the help of the community to board some of these guys. So if there's anybody out there who would like to be part of the club in another way and board some of these guys, there is a package to supplement having those guys in your household.